Hey guys, welcome back to Honkai Star Rail. In today's video, we're going to go through my reroll priorities for the game. And just quickly before we get into it, we just capped off our last $100 giveaway. And this video is going to be the next one of those $100 giveaways. So to enter, just be subscribed and leave a comment on this video. Say whatever you want in the comment and you'll go into the draw. I'll do the draw and announce the winner in a community post about a week away. So before we get into the actual list, I just wanted to say that you can reroll for or take, or you don't have to reroll, but you can get whoever you want. Pick your favorite character and go for that character, because at the end of the day, the game gives you free-to-play units that you can get through everything. If you go for a more optimal unit, it's just going to speed up your process of clearing endgame content and stuff like that. So if that's something important to you, go nuts. But in general, I really do think you can go for any unit that you want. For me personally, that would be Clara, because, you know, it's Svarog. He's a big mech. Like, it's too cool. But yeah, you can go for absolutely anything you want. Also, for a reroll guide, I do have one prepared. I'm just waiting till like 24 hours before the launch of the game before I release it, just in case we find out about any sneaky new rewards that will change the process of the rerolls. So I will have a reroll, a detailed reroll guide out before the launch of the game as well. So let's get into it. Reroll priorities. So the You Are Crazy. Oh yeah, before we get into that, the 4 stars. I just put these here because these are 4 stars that you don't get for free along the way. So keep an eye out for them. They're just a little bonus that if you get that on your account, it's not too bad. Sushang's the main one for early game. If you get Sushang to Eidolon 1, meaning 1 dupe, she becomes absolutely crazy. So Sushang's my #1 priority out of these for the early game. Tingyun becomes great later on, but Hook's actually not too bad early game. These other 3, they become better later on, but in the early game, it's all about turtling, using double shielder and healer. So you're only looking for a main DPS in that situation. But let's get into You Are Crazy. Seele. I think you'll get like 3 summons on a reroll going for Seele. I've heard some people say they're going to reroll for Seele. To them, I say, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get it within your first 3 months of rerolling, or at least before the banner goes away. But honestly, that is too crazy for me. But if you do it and you're a free-to-play player, I mean, you got a pretty cracked free-to-play account if you start off with the Seele from 3 summons. Pretty massive, but, you know, it just depends how you value your time. So that is that one. Now we go into the top priority. Top priority for me is going to be Bronya. Now, Bronya did get a little nerf. Well, it was actually a significant nerf in the way we were theory crafting her, based on everything that we were seeing was use her skill on herself, then use her basic on herself as well. And that would boost her energy by 50 every turn she has, and she would consume no skill points. And because she's boosting her damage with her skill, she's guaranteed to crit with her basic, meaning she was actually doing like pretty close to like more than like some sub DPS options. So she was doing crazy damage, having 100% uptime on these the alt damage increase for your team, and not consuming any skill points. Like, she was cracked. Now, they got rid of the way she can buff herself, but she's still, in my opinion, the top priority. Because if you just basic attack spam with her, she gets so many turns, generates so many skill points that gives so much flexibility to your team, and she still has a pretty high uptime of her ultimate, so she is still definitely the top priority for me. Now, when I look at the second priority being BaiLu, I can definitely see arguments to mix these 2 up in priority, or just put them both as top priority. For me personally though, I'd put BaiLu as my second priority, just because Bronya, when I look at it, it's kind of funny the way you look at it. So when we look at Chaos Memory, which is, you know, like the end game mode, kind of like Abyss from Genshin, you're going to need 2 teams. Now, having a second healer makes it a lot easier to get through it. However, the other side to it is that you've got to complete these battles in a certain amount of cycles, or a certain amount of turns, if you will. So having a really cracked support that's going to make your damage much higher, and then just running it with shielders, could actually get you to 3-starring it faster. So the funny thing with Chaos Memory, I think BaiLu would get you to clearing it faster, but all the gems is tied behind the stars. So Bronya gets you to 3-starring it faster, if that makes sense. So it's a big trade-off. Take what you want. Both of those are fantastic units. Now moving on to the next one, I want to talk about Himeko. She goes into good units. I can pretty much just do this. All these guys are going into good units. I don't think I can separate these on priority. Honestly, I don't think there's a bad option to start your account with anymore. Himeko. Now, I was a bit wrong about Himeko, happy to admit it. She did get a buff, she got a burn. like, so one of her traces now, she can apply a burn with any one of her skills. So that it used to be basic, now it's anything, so she does get the added burn. However, I was a bit harsh on the AoE side of the game when I was first looking into it, because when we were going through the Chaos Memory and the Forgotten Hall, all the lower floors only had single bosses. But when we look at something like Chaos Memory 10, for instance, it has a wave of 4 enemies, and then the boss is actually 2 bosses in one fight, which is Kokolia and an Ice Golem. And believe it or not, like in that floor, which is the hardest floor in the game so far, and I'm assuming they'll change enemies in those floors eventually, but at the moment, everything in that floor is weak to fire, which is actually a place where Himeko can incredibly shine. So certain situations, I think she's going to be more of a situational unit in that you need to have 2 bosses weak to fire and you need to have waves to kill. But in general, I think when she does find her circumstance in which she shines, she's going to shine super bright. So Himeko, great unit. Clara is another great unit. Like I said, my personal favorite character of the bunch. But, you know, she is going to be a crazy... She's honestly amazing for the early game, because early game is all about turtling, using double shielder and healer to just clap content with minimal investment so you can save your investment for later on. And Clara is perfect for that because she's just going to revenge. She mitigates the own damage she receives. She pairs super well with March because then she's going to get attacked more, generate more energy, revenge more, get her rolled up, do enhanced revenges, which then do splash damage. And she's got crazy AoE with her skill. Honestly, Clara is just a cracked physical damage unit, and she plays very unique to anything else, and I find it to be quite a fun playstyle. If you don't enjoy the sort of revenge playstyle, then I would put Clara out of your list, but in general, I think she's fantastic. Then we have Yanqing. Now, this guy is really high damage capabilities. His only downfall is that you need to have him not take damage. So you need to keep him permanently shielded. However, in the early game, I think he's going to be fantastic for it because you have March who can put a shield on, which basically can mitigate any hit. The shield March puts on is huge, especially in the early game. So he's fine. And then as we move into the later game, you know, he's going to be kind of similar to Himeko, I feel, where he's not going to be completely splashable in every fight, but against ice weak enemies, especially ice weak bosses who, when they're weak to ice, they can normally be frozen. He can be freezing them. He brings a ton of break because his follow-up attack actually applies toughness shred as well. So he can really break enemies. He's got the crits. He's actually just an all-round really solid unit, but his big downfall is that he basically hits like a wet noodle if he takes damage. So you've got to keep him from ever taking damage, and then you'll be pretty good. If he takes damage, you feel very crippled. So once again, really good unit, situational, like all these units. Then we have Gepard. Gepard's a fantastic shielder. Now, I think he's not so good in the early game. I prefer something like March 7th or Trailblazer Fire. Honestly, I prefer both of them in the same team for early game, pushing through the campaign and stuff like that. Gepard shines later when we look at things like Chaos Memory and Simulated Universe. His shields are so chunky, and especially like Simulated Universe, if you go down the preservation path, you get all this extra damage from shields, and his shield's just that big that you just destroy everything. And then in when we look to the in the Chaos Memory, his shield can actually provide you enough sustainability that you don't need to bring a healer to a second team, so he can provide that role as well. And similar to Yanqing, he then also has a freeze, so if the boss is weak to ice or is able to be frozen, you can just stack a bit of that effect, the effect accuracy, and you can freeze bosses, which is super nice. And then we have Welt. Now, Welt got the change where it looks like his ultimate is going to just give a debuff on the enemy that increases the damage they take, and I believe that multiplies that damage outside of everything else, so it's a really nice multiplier. He slows the enemies down. Really good supportive unit. The one thing that I think is a bit of a downfall for Welt is when we look at the endgame mode Chaos Memory, is that is governed by cycles, which is a crazy concept. I'm not going to go overly deep into it, but the problem with Welt is he slows the enemies, so it makes it easier for your team to do their thing against the enemies, but he doesn't speed up your rate of victory, which in the Chaos Memory, it is about winning quick. However, he is the only imaginary unit in the game, so that is a massive plus for him if you come up against those bosses. He's got multi-hit, he's got double slows, he's got that damage amplification now with the change. He is pretty good all round. So like I said, Bronya and BaiLu, just for, you know, the sake of having those units to buff other units. Like we only got one other healer, and, you know, Bronya's just amazing support, which can buff any of the DPS that you got. So those are two key roles that I really like filled, and that's why they would be my top 2 priorities. And then these other units, I can't separate them anymore. I think they're just all great units. I think they're all good, and that's pretty much where we're at. So honestly, to me, I'm not rerolling because every character just feels nice to me. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, you can get through the whole game, the campaign and stuff like that using the free-to-play units, so then it just becomes luxury on what you want to use and whether you want to look at like trying to grind Chaos Memory early or just have fun with the character you like. But you guys let me know who you're going to reroll for. Are you going to reroll? Are you a crazy person rerolling for Seele? Let me know. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.